Dexter Original Sin, episode 10, confirms that this is not the end of the show. It confirms that there will be a season 2 for Dexter Original Sin. How do you say so with so much confidence, you ask? Well, the evidence is obvious. Dexter writers are historically terrible at series finales, but very good at season finales. And what we got today, my friends, is a fantastic season finale that wraps up the season really well, leaves us at the edge of our seats, waiting and hoping for another season, and does not botch the ending of the entire show. So I can say with full confidence that what we got today is a season finale, not a series finale, because if it were a series finale, this big beautiful smile will not be on my face or on yours, as a matter of fact. So let's start with Patrick Dempsey's character, Captain Spencer. Patrick Dempsey's fans can now rest easy knowing that he looks just as handsome and dashingly gorgeous dead as he does alive. Okay? Thank you, Patrick Dempsey. You can do no wrong. He played the character really well. I thoroughly enjoyed. I was fully in on it. It was a disturbing character. His motives still don't make much sense to me. What I am left really with questioning here is, what was his end goal? What did he think would happen after he had drowned Nikki, then brought a gun to his ex-wife's house, shot her, and killed her husband? What did he think would happen afterwards? What's the end game here? Did he just completely lose his mind? How? There's no scenario here unless he was going to finish that by killing himself or giving himself up to the police, or knowing that he was going to get arrested. There's no happy ending here for him. He has his motive. He has, I mean, even if he's gone forever, they're going to know that it was him. I mean, there's nobody else that's going to commit all of these crimes and would have a motive as much as Spencer. So what was he thinking? Was he planning to commit suicide afterwards and just murder the entire family and then commit suicide? Was he planning to give himself in to the police? What was he planning? Because there is no scenario here in what he was, the chain of actions that took place in this episode, where he walks free or continues to be the captain of the Miami Police Department. The only, logical chain of action from there is for him to either die or go to jail. So I'm not really sure what he was planning there. Doesn't make any sense. His actions don't make any sense whatsoever for a person who wants to have a life afterwards and keep his job. So that was confusing there. It seemed that he just completely went bananas and was acting completely out of impulses. And again, for me, I really hope that we don't live in a world where somebody gets cheated on and goes from being a decent human being who is a cop to all of a sudden murdering and kidnapping and murdering children. So I hope this is one of those examples of just a person who is already disturbed, already has issues, who is just really good at masking that and made it up the police ladder, rather than just someone who was your average person, a decent human being who snapped, and his first order of action was murdering children. So I really struggled with the character arc in general. Where it started, where it ended, it doesn't make a lot of sense. On the topic of things that didn't make sense to me, and this may be nitpicking, but the one thing that I wanted to see more of is Dexter's training and talking about the code, especially his martial arts training. Because after episode 1, I think, when we saw him kind of roughhousing with Harry and kind of, figuring out the kill and all of that, we didn't see him train at all after that. And I don't think even high level martial artists don't just stop training and hope that they still got the skills. They have to continue to train to maintain the skills and to get better. You don't get better by not practicing. And we know that he is kind of still stalking and grabbing people and murdering and all of that. And all of that goes into you're still practicing what you're doing. But at the same time, you still want to keep training and you still want to be talking about the code. And so this kind of schooling of Dexter didn't really happen beyond episode 1. And I wanted to see more of that for continuity purposes and for it to kind of to make sense, because he fought Captain Spencer in episode 10, and that was not an easy fight by any means. He was fighting someone who is well trained, was a ninja, and who's very scrappy. And we didn't see Dexter really preparing for that. We saw him just going after people, going after big dogs, literally, and winning. And things just seemed to happen easily for him without him really putting in a lot of effort into them. So that was one of the things that I wanted to see more of, for the sake of things making sense. The other thing that I didn't want to see or didn't like seeing in episode 10 is LaGuerta hearing Harry have a conversation with Bobby, I think, at the end of the episode, and saying that her theory about the murders being connected didn't pan out, and that he doesn't believe that the theory pans out, and Maria kind of feeling slighted by Harry. I really, really like the camaraderie that they were building throughout the season, and I really like the connection and how close they were getting, they were becoming. And for me, that made a lot of sense. But I didn't really like to see this beginning of fallout. And I think this is kind of like one of those Easter eggs that puts Maria on a different track and puts Harry on a different track. And I'm curious where that goes, because now the jig's up. Maria knows something's up. Maria knows he's hiding something. And she knows Brian's name. I'm not sure where they're going to take it from there. And I'm not sure how they're going to make it make sense that 15 years later, Maria has forgotten about Brian's name and or has dropped the case altogether. I think one good way for them to wrap it together would be that Maria keeps, maybe in season 2 we see Maria keeps kind of following this path and gets close to figuring out who Brian is, and that is what triggers Brian to skip town and be gone for a long period of time. That would make sense, and for him to kind of reinvent himself and recreate this whole personality, that would make sense for him to be gone for 10 to 15 years until things have quieted down and Maria has forgotten about him. So now that the jig's up on Spencer, I everybody knows now, and I was really hoping that they wouldn't do this, that they wouldn't that Dexter would kill Spencer, and the only person to know that Spencer is the one that kidnapped Nikki would be Harry, because Dexter told him so. I didn't want Miami Metro to know about this, because it doesn't make sense for this to not come up at all in the original show, that their captain was turned out to be a nut job who murdered a child and attempted to murder his own child. Well, not really his own, but it doesn't make sense, especially later on after season 2 when they find out that Dokes was the Bay Harbor butcher, that nobody would bring that up or reminisce, or kind of, especially that most of them were there. LaGuerta was there, Batista was there, Masuka was there, a lot of those same cops were there, Dexter was there. That it would never be brought up is kind of an issue. Not really a big deal, still one of those things we can just sweep under the rug. Also, what are we going to do about Bobby knowing that Brian is up and about, and knowing that Brian has murdered a bunch of people? Will there be a conversation between Bobby and Harry? I mean, we saw that Harry in episode 9, Harry was visiting Bobby at the hospital and told him about Brian, and told him that he resurfaced and that he is the person who has been murdering people. and Brian and Bobby had advised Harry to go save Dexter. So Bobby knows, and we're gonna need to figure out how Bobby gets off the trail of Brian. Or maybe Bobby pursues Brian, and that also motivates Brian to skip town and be gone for a period of time. And that also would make sense as to why Brian would be gone for a long time. Because I'm still not convinced that Brian would leave for 10 to 15 years just because Harry told him to leave. Or just because he thinks that his brother is going to be better off without him, especially after Harry dies. It still doesn't make sense. Overall, I think that this season one was solid, was really, really good, and I really enjoyed the finale. It did everything it needed to do. It continued to make us love the character of Dexter and empathize with him. It helped us gain more understanding of his past and what drove him to doing what he does and his relationship with Harry. And it gave me more of a soft spot for the character of Dexter, especially after he saved Nikki. Although we really didn't have any connection with Nikki, we just saw him once before he got kidnapped. But I think what made me at least feel more empathy toward Nikki is just the idea that he was caught in a really terrible situation with adults doing adult things, doing crappy adult things, and him being caught in the middle and being kind of the victim of it all, literally the victim of his parents making terrible decisions. So even though we didn't really see Nikki on the screen a lot, I still felt empathy for his character and felt connected to his character, and felt a lot of relief when Dexter saved him, which made me love Dexter even more and kind of justify his actions even more. So the show did what it needed to do. It also gave us more gore, I think, than the seasons of the original show, which is great because it wasn't sheltering or it wasn't shielding the audience from how gory the stuff that Dexter and Brian were doing. It was more authentic, more honest, more transparent with us, with both the good and the bad of Dexter, and mostly the bad of Brian because there wasn't a lot of good there to vie for. I really liked that, especially the shipping container scenes. There was a lot of gore. We saw Laura's body, dismembered body, multiple times, and I think that really helped us, at least me, really connect with both Dexter and Brian's characters. I felt really terrible for those two little boys. And of course, this helped us understand the casting choices and why they didn't have an actual 3-year-old and an actual whatever 7 or 5-year-old play the roles, because that's a lot. That is a lot of stuff for kids that little, and that's what I kind of assumed from the very beginning when I saw bigger kids than 3 and 5 or 7. I thought, ooh, they're really gonna go for it with the container incident, and they can't have kids that little because they can't really understand what's going on. So they needed older kids for those scenes. And just seeing that Brian was really Dexter's lifeline there, and Dexter was also Brian's lifeline there. Brian's attention and focus was shifted from the mom being chopped to pieces to, okay, I can control this. I can control calming down my little brother. I can't control what's happening to mom, but I can control being there for my brother. So that really kind of hits the nail on the head as to why, one of the reasons why Brian becomes really fixated on Dexter and fixated on helping or controlling or protecting Dexter, because that was his lifeline in that moment. And if you want to hear more about me diving into the psychology of Brian, please watch the video that I just made earlier today. I'm linking that in the description again for you to see, and for me to blab more about the psychology of Brian, which I loved nerding out about. But overall, I really enjoyed this season. I am definitely going to rewatch it at least one time before we get yet more Dexter lore. I am really looking forward to what they're going to do with Resurrection. I hope the same writers are involved, and I'm going to, of course, be making videos as the show comes out and as we start learning more about what happens in the future of Dexter Morgan. All right, thank you all for watching. Please leave a comment and let me know what you thought. I love engaging with you in the comments, and I'll see you all soon.